Ever think about how your brain is basically an explorer? Like charting out, well, these crazy detailed maps of everything around you.
It really is.
Not just the outside world either, but like your inner world too.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing today, diving deep into those brain maps and how they shape, well, everything. Our senses, our feelings, even like our sense of self. And we've got excerpts from a neuroscientist's lecture series on brain mapping to kind of guide us.
Yeah, it's some pretty mind-bending stuff, especially I think when you consider like the dynamic nature of these maps, you know.
Right, right.
Take the cerebral cortex, for instance, specifically layer 4.
Okay, layer 4. So what's so special about that?
Well, it's like a living canvas where your brain paints these super intricate neural patterns.
Right.
And each pattern is like a unique code representing a specific sensory experience, like a sight, a sound, a touch, whatever.
So it's not like a static photograph. It's more like a constantly updating stream of information, right?
Precisely. Imagine like those digital billboards, you know, with ever-changing patterns of light. It's
Yeah.
kind of how layer 4 operates, constantly shifting and adapting to new information.
And this mapping, it's not limited to just vision, right? Because the lectures also went into how the brain maps sound, starting with the cochlea in our inner ear.
Right, right. The cochlea is fascinating. It has this tonotopic organization, almost like a piano keyboard for frequencies.
Oh, wow.
Different sections respond to different frequencies of sound.
So could this tonotopic organization explain why some people have perfect pitch? Like, is their keyboard somehow tuned differently?
That's a great question. That's something researchers are still exploring. We know the brain is incredibly adaptable.
Right.
So it's possible their brains are just interpreting those signals from the cochlea in a unique way.
Okay.
Or maybe their early musical training has like shaped the way their brain maps sound.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure.
Okay, so we've got these maps for all our senses, but how do they become thoughts
Yeah.
and feelings? How do we go from a neural map of, say, a tree to actually experiencing its beauty or remembering, climbing one as a kid?
Well, that's where things get really interesting because all our mental experiences, even abstract thoughts and emotions, are built on these foundational sensory maps.
So when I think about a concept like freedom, my brain is actually drawing on memories of things I've seen or heard or felt that relate to that idea.
Exactly. Like it could be a memory of running through a field, the feeling of the wind on your skin, the vastness of the sky above you. All those sensory experiences create the building blocks for your understanding of freedom.
Okay, that's incredible. But the lectures also mentioned that our brains organize these maps based on value. How does the brain determine which maps are more valuable than others?
It's all about survival and relevance.
Okay.
Your brain prioritizes maps that are crucial for survival, you know, like those that help you spot danger or find food. Think about if you're walking down a dark street, your brain's going to be like hyper-focused on any potential threats,
Yeah.
amplifying any sounds or movements that could signal danger.
So a rustling in the bushes suddenly becomes way more significant to me because my brain is prioritizing that information.
Exactly. Your brain is constantly assessing the environment and your internal state,
Right.
highlighting the maps that are most important at that moment.
For your safety and well-being.
Right.
Okay. That's amazing. But here's where things took a really unexpected turn. The lectures suggested that that the cortex might not be the only place where all this mind stuff happens. They pointed to the brainstem, often called the lizard brain, as potentially playing a much bigger role, especially with feelings.
Right.
But I mean, isn't the cortex supposed to be the seat of consciousness?
Well, that's the traditional view, but new research is challenging that assumption.
Okay.
There's mounting evidence that feelings, especially those tied to survival instincts, you know, like pain and pleasure,
Might actually originate in the brainstem.
Whoa. So are you saying those gut feelings we talk about could literally be coming from structures in our brainstem
Yeah.
that are closely connected to our internal organs?
It's a fascinating possibility.
Wow.
Structures like the nucleus tractus solitarius
Okay.
and the parabrachial nucleus are constantly monitoring our internal state and influencing our feelings and behaviors.
So it's not just the cortex making decisions. We've got this whole other system working behind the scenes, shaping our feelings and actions. But how can we be sure that the brainstem is actually involved in creating our minds?
Right.
I mean, it seems so primitive.
Well, there's some compelling evidence from patients with brain damage.
Okay.
Some individuals with damage to the insular cortex, a part of the brain traditionally thought to process emotions, can still experience a range of feelings.
So even if the part of the brain that's supposed to be responsible for emotions is damaged, they can still feel joy, sadness,
Yeah,
anger. Yeah, it's really challenging our understanding of where consciousness comes from.
it is.
And it suggests that maybe those feelings aren't solely generated in the cortex.
Yeah.
Maybe they're coming from these deeper structures in the brainstem.
And there was something in the lecture about children born without a cerebral cortex, right?
Yes, and it's remarkable. Despite missing the entire outer layer of their brains, these children can still experience basic emotions like joy and sadness.
Wow.
Really makes you question our assumptions about where consciousness resides.
It does. So we've got the brainstem potentially laying the groundwork for feelings and basic awareness, and then the cortex adding like complexity and nuance.
Right.
So is it possible they work together to create our full mental experience?
Yeah.
Maybe like a hierarchical system.
That's a great way to think about it. The brainstem might provide the basic building blocks of feeling and awareness, and the cortex builds on those foundations, adding layers of interpretation and meaning.
So the brainstem gives us that raw, primal feeling of I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then the cortex helps us understand who I am and how we relate to the world around us.
Exactly. It's this incredible collaboration between different parts of the brain,
Yeah.
each contributing to the symphony of consciousness.
Okay, this is already so much to think about.
Yeah.
We've explored how our brains create these detailed maps of the world,
Right.
how those maps give rise to feelings
Yeah.
and even a sense of self.
Mhm.
And we've even peeked into the mysterious depths of the brainstem where the earliest flickers of consciousness might reside. But hold on to your hats because it gets even more fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
There's this structure called the superior colliculus.
Oh, yes. The often overlooked structure in the brainstem. It's been getting a lot of attention lately.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's like mission control for the brain, integrating information from all our senses.
That's a great way to put it. The superior colliculus is bombarded with sensory input, receiving data from our eyes, ears, skin, internal organs, everything.
But why does it need to map everything? What's the purpose of all that integration?
Well, think about a lizard trying to catch a fly. It needs to perfectly coordinate its movements with what it's seeing to be successful. The superior colliculus helps with that precise, coordinated action.
So for humans, it's reaching for a coffee cup, but the principle's the same.
Exactly. It's taking in all this sensory data and using it to make like split-second decisions about how to react and respond in real time.
But we're more than just glorified lizards, right?
Right.
There's got to be more to the superior colliculus than just coordinating actions.
Right.
And the research you sent mentioned a possible link between the superior colliculus and consciousness. How is that even possible? It seems so counterintuitive.
Well, there's some compelling evidence emerging to support this idea. For instance, there was a case study of a patient who had damage to both sides of their superior colliculus,
Okay.
and they experienced a severe impairment of consciousness.
So without the superior colliculus, no consciousness.
It's a pretty big deal. It suggests a much deeper role than we previously thought. And even in cases where someone's visual cortex is damaged, their superior colliculus may allow for what's called blind sight.
Blind sight, what's that?
It means they may not consciously see, but they can still react to movement or the presence of objects in their visual field.
Yeah.
It's as if their superior colliculus is picking up the slack, processing visual information on a subconscious level.
So even if the part of the brain that sees isn't working, the superior colliculus can still process visual information.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, and what's even more intriguing is that the superior colliculus generates gamma waves.
Right, gamma waves. I know they're brain waves, but remind me, what makes them so special?
Gamma waves are, they're often linked to higher level processing, things like conscious perception, problem solving, even meditation. And get this, the superior colliculus is the only area outside of the cerebral cortex that's been observed to produce them.
So this lizard brain structure, the superior colliculus, is generating the same brain waves we see in complex thought.
Yeah.
Does this challenge how we think about consciousness?
It certainly raises some fascinating questions. If we're seeing gamma waves in a structure we associate with basic reflexes,
Right.
does that mean consciousness itself might be more fundamental than we realize?
Huh.
Perhaps it's not solely a product of the, the higher brain, but something that emerges from deeper, more ancient parts of our brains as well.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why they call this a deep dive. So we've got senses coming in,
Right.
the superior colliculus coordinating actions,
Yeah.
and maybe even playing a role in the very essence of being aware.
Mm-hmm.
But how does this all connect to the self,
Right.
to that feeling of me inside my head?
Well, the answer might lie in the way the brain maps the body.
Body maps. You mean my brain has a diagram of me stashed in there somewhere?
Not a literal diagram, but your brain actively creates a representation of your body within your mind.
Okay.
It's constantly monitoring signals from your muscles, skin, and organs to construct this dynamic map of your physical self.
That makes sense. If my brain didn't know where my arm was, I couldn't reach for my coffee.
Hmm.
But how does a body map connect to a sense of me? It seems like a big leap.
It's fundamental to our sense of self. Without this map, your brain wouldn't be able to distinguish between what's you and what's not you.
Right.
Wouldn't know where your body ends and the outside world begins.
Wow, so that feeling of being a separate self inside my own body is built on this constant flow of information.
Yeah.
Information that the superior colliculus might be helping to process. This is really challenging my assumptions about how our sense of self develops.
It's a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It highlights just how interconnected our physical and mental experiences really are.
This makes me think about the evolution of consciousness in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Did early humans even have a concept of a unified self?
Yeah.
I mean, their brains were probably mapping those body parts, but did they have that sense of a single integrated me?
There's some research suggesting they might not have. For example, there's this concept of Homeric language, which refers to the language used in ancient Greek texts, like the Odyssey and the Iliad. In those texts, there's no single word for body.
Oh, wow.
Instead, they referred to individual parts, the hand, the blood, the breath, almost as separate entities.
It's as if their brains hadn't quite put all the pieces together yet. They were aware of the parts, but not necessarily the whole.
That's a very interesting way to put it. It highlights how our modern sense of self, this feeling of being a single integrated being, might have emerged over time as our brains evolved more sophisticated ways of mapping and interpreting bodily sensations.
This is getting pretty deep.
Yeah.
So the way our brains map our bodies and the superior colliculus's potential role in that
Right.
might be the key to understanding how that feeling of me came to be.
Exactly. It's like the foundation upon which our sense of self is built, this constant interplay between the physical and the mental,
Yeah.
between the ancient structures of our brainstem and the more recently evolved cortex.
I'm definitely feeling the depth of this dive. We've got this whole world of body-brain communication to unpack and how it relates to feelings, emotions, maybe even the things we think of as our personality.
Yeah, it's a complex and beautiful system, and we're just starting to unravel its mysteries.
All right, so we've established that the brain is creating this dynamic body map, constantly updating based on what our senses are telling us. It's like the ultimate internal GPS, always tracking our position in the world. But how does a map actually translate into action? I mean, we're not just passively observing our bodies, we're moving, reacting, interacting with the world.
Right, it's all about communication. That body map isn't just sitting there in isolation.
Yeah.
It's the basis for a constant two-way conversation between your brain and your body.
So the brain maps the body. And then what? What's the language of this conversation? How do they talk to each other?
We're talking signals, both neural and chemical. Neural signals are, they're the fast-acting ones, zipping along nerves like messages on a superhighway.
Okay.
Think about touching a hot stove.
Oh, yeah?
You pull your hand away instantly without even thinking about it.
Definitely no deep thought required for that reflex.
Right.
But what about the chemical signals? Are those more like sending a letter through the postal service?
Exactly. Chemical signals involve hormones and other molecules that travel through the bloodstream.
Okay.
They're slower, but they can have longer-lasting effects.
Got it.
Think about the feeling of a runner's high after a good workout.
Right.
That's your brain and body chatting it up via endorphins.
This makes me wonder about how much is going on beneath the surface without us even realizing it. Like my stomach just growled.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a neural signal? A chemical signal? Or both?
It's probably a combination. Your stomach is basically telling your brain, hey, I'm empty, fuel me up. That message could be sent via both nerves firing and hormones, like ghrelin signaling hunger. And then, of course, your brain responds, maybe by making you feel those hunger pangs, or making that sandwich you saw earlier look really, really appealing.
So it's not just the brain controlling the body. It's a two-way street with constant feedback,
Hmm.
like a partnership or maybe even a dance.
That's a great analogy.
Uh,
And for the dance to work, there needs to be clear communication, a constant give and take.
right.
That's what creates that seamless flow of movement and sensation we experience every day.
But speaking of flow, in the research you sent, there's this idea that the brain can simulate body states that haven't even happened yet.
Mm.
That seems a little out there.
Yeah.
Like, how can my brain know what something feels like if I haven't actually experienced it?
It's true, and it really highlights how active the brain is in shaping our bodily experience. Think about watching a scary movie.
Oh, yeah. My heart races. My palms sweat. Even though I know it's not real,
Mm.
it's like my body is reacting to a threat that only exists in my mind.
Right, but your brain is running a simulation, prepping your body for a potential threat, even though it's just a mental construct.
So it's like my brain is saying, hey, just in case this monster jumps out of the screen, let's get ready to fight or flee. It's kind of freaky, but also really cool.
It is, and this happens all the time, not just with fear. Think about imagining biting into a juicy lemon.
Okay.
You might actually start to salivate, even though there's no lemon present.
Okay, now that's just wild. So my brain isn't just reacting to my body, it's actively shaping my experience of it. It's almost like I'm living in a simulation created by my own brain.
In a way, yes. Our perception of the world, including our own bodies, is always filtered through the lens of the brain's interpretation. It's constantly constructing our reality based on our past experiences, expectations, and even our current emotional state.
That's a lot to process, but it makes sense. The brain is constantly trying to make sense of the world, and that includes our own bodies.
Mhm.
It's not just passively receiving information, it's actively constructing our experience. And this brings us back to the superior colliculus, right?
Uh-huh.
If it's playing a role in consciousness,
Right.
and consciousness involves this active construction of reality,
Hmm.
then maybe it's even more integral to our sense of self than we initially thought.
Exactly. It's another piece of the puzzle that highlights the interconnectedness of our physical and mental experiences.
So this little structure that helps lizards catch flies
Yeah.
might also be helping us create the feeling of being a distinct me inside our own heads. Mind officially blown. Again,
It's a pretty amazing idea, isn't it? It shows how much we still have to learn about this fascinating part of the brain.
definitely. But we can't stop there. We've talked about mapping,
Mhm.
communication,
Yeah.
even simulation.
Mm.
But there's still the big question of feelings.
Right.
How do all those signals and maps actually translate into the subjective experiences of, say, joy or sadness or anger? How do we go from a map of our heart beating faster to actually feeling afraid?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting, because we're not just talking about objective data anymore. We're talking about how the brain takes all those physical signals, heart rate, muscle tension, hormone levels, you name it, and transforms them into those subjective experiences we call feelings.
So we're going from like numbers on a chart to the actual experience of, feeling happy or sad.
Yeah.
How does that even happen? I mean, is there some kind of feeling center in the brain that, takes those signals and says, okay, this combination means you're feeling excited?
It's not quite that simple.
Yeah.
There isn't like one specific spot where feelings are generated. It's more about how the brain integrates information from the body with its own internal processing memories, expectations, even cultural influences.
So it's not just the body telling the brain, hey, feel this. It's more like a collaboration, a back and forth dialogue,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Imagine this. Your brain is constantly creating a mental model of the world. And this model includes a representation of your own body,
Yep.
that dynamic body map we talked about. But this map isn't static. It's constantly evolving based on all sorts of inputs, both from the body and from the brain itself.
So my brain is basically like building a story about what's happening in my body, and that story becomes my emotional experience.
I like that analogy.
Because the brain is the narrator, weaving together all these threads of information into a coherent narrative.
And the superior colliculus, with its role in integrating sensory information and potentially even contributing to consciousness, might be involved in this kind of storytelling process as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's say I'm walking down the street and I see a dog running toward me.
Mm-hmm.
My heart rate goes up, my muscles tense, and my brain gets all this information through that body map.
Right,
But how does it decide whether I should feel fear or excitement?
right.
Like what tips the scales one way or the other?
That's where the brain's higher level processing comes in.
Okay.
It takes those basic bodily sensations and interprets them based on a whole range of factors. Past experiences, learned associations, even cultural norms.
Hmm.
Like, do I like dogs? Is the dog barking or wagging its tail?
Right. Yeah.
What are my past experiences with dogs? All of this information gets factored in to create the final emotional experience.
So it's not just about the physical sensations themselves, but the meaning we attach to them.
Exactly. It's not a simple reflex. It's a nuanced interpretation of bodily sensations woven into the tapestry of our unique experiences and memories.
This is really making me rethink the whole mind-body connection. It's
Yeah.
not just a philosophical concept.
Right.
It's happening at a very real biological level.
All the time. Even in structures like the brainstem that we traditionally thought of as being primarily responsible for, uh, you know, basic reflexes.
Hmm.
Earlier, we talked about the nucleus tractus solitarius, for example.
Right, that mouthful of a structure that's basically a sensory relay station for the body's internal landscape.
Yeah.
It's monitoring things like heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen levels, all those vital functions that are usually humming along in the background without us even noticing them.
Exactly. And while it plays a crucial role in maintaining our physiological equilibrium,
Right.
it also has these fascinating connections to our emotional lives. Remember, it's constantly assessing our internal state, looking for any signs of imbalance or threat.
So if it detects a sudden drop in blood pressure, for example, it could trigger like feelings of anxiety or even panic.
Mm-hmm.
Like our bodies are giving us those early warning signs that something might be wrong, even if we haven't consciously registered the danger yet.
That's a great way to think about it. The nucleus tractus solitarius is a key part of that early warning system, always scanning the horizon of our internal world for any signs of trouble.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right?
Right.
It also plays a role in those, those little
Exactly.
positive, feel-good feelings.
Of course.
I mean, we don't just feel anxious all the time.
No. When the nucleus tractus solitarius receives signals of a healthy, balanced internal state,
Okay.
it can contribute to feelings of calmness, contentment, and even joy. It's like it's saying, everything's good here, we're safe, we're thriving.
That's really reassuring. It makes me wonder if those practices like um, mindfulness and meditation,
Mm-hmm.
which focus on cultivating a sense of inner peace and awareness of our bodily sensations,
Right.
could actually be influencing the activity of the nucleus tractus solitarius.
Yeah.
If we can learn to calm our minds and regulate our stress responses, maybe we can actually train our brains to interpret those bodily signals in a more positive light.
That's a really interesting question, and it's definitely an area where more research is needed. But there's certainly evidence suggesting that mindfulness practices can have a positive impact on our physiological and emotional well-being. It's like we're teaching our brains to recognize and appreciate those subtle signals of safety and well-being that are often drowned out by the noise of our busy lives.
Yeah, that's a really empowering thought. But before we get too carried away with our newfound ability to rewire our brains,
Right.
we should probably talk about another crucial structure in the brainstem, the parabrachial nucleus.
Ah, yes, the parabrachial nucleus. It's closely connected to the nucleus tractus solitarius
Right.
and plays a key role in generating those more complex, nuanced emotional responses that really make us human.
Okay, so the nucleus tractus solitarius is like the first responder, sending those initial signals of safety or danger.
Mm-hmm.
The parabrachial nucleus is more like the detective, piecing together the clues and figuring out what's really going on.
I like that analogy. The parabrachial nucleus receives input from the nucleus tractus solitarius, but it also integrates information from other parts of the brain, including the amygdala, which is involved in processing fear and other strong emotions.
So it's like a meeting point where those raw, visceral signals from the body meet up with our memories, expectations, and learned associations.
Exactly. And this integration allows for a more nuanced and sophisticated emotional response.
Okay.
For example, the parabrachial nucleus might help us distinguish between different types of fear, like the fear of a physical threat versus the fear of social rejection.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just about feeling afraid. It's about understanding the context of that fear
Mm-hmm.
and responding in a way that's appropriate to the situation.
Precisely. The parabrachial nucleus helps us fine-tune our emotional responses to better fit the situation. It's like it's saying, okay, we're getting signals of fear, but what kind of fear is it, and what's the most adaptive way to respond?
This whole conversation is making me realize just how how complex and interconnected our brains and bodies really are.
Yeah.
It's not just the simple hierarchy of brain regions.
Right.
It's this dynamic interplay of signals and interpretations happening across multiple levels,
Mm-hmm.
all working together to create the richness and complexity of our emotional
And
lives.
absolutely. And this complexity is what allows us to experience the full spectrum of human emotions, from the most primal instinctual responses
Yeah.
to those more nuanced and subtle feelings that are shaped by our individual experiences and our understanding of the world around us.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about how these brainstem structures, the nucleus tractus solitarius
Yeah.
and the parabrachial nucleus, are involved in generating those raw visceral feelings.
Right.
But what about the cortex?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it play a role in emotions too? I mean, we think of the cortex as the seat of like higher level thought and reasoning.
Of course. The cortex, particularly the prefrontal cortex, is essential for our higher level emotional processing, including things like emotional regulation, empathy, and social cognition.
So it's like the cortex helps us make sense of our feelings, put them into words,
Mm-hmm.
understand their causes and consequences,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even decide how to express them in a way that's appropriate to the situation.
Exactly. The cortex allows us to think about our feelings,
Okay.
reflect on them, and even talk about them with others. It adds that layer of conscious awareness and control that allows us to navigate the complex social and emotional landscape of human experience.
It's like the cortex is the conductor of the emotional orchestra,
Yeah.
helping to like harmonize all the different instruments and create a symphony of feelings that makes sense to us and to those around us.
I love that analogy. It really captures the complexity and beauty of our emotional lives.
Yeah.
It's not just about those raw instinctual feelings generated in the brainstem. It's about the way those feelings are integrated, interpreted, and expressed through the lens of our individual experiences and our understanding of the world.
And this symphony of feelings
Hmm.
is constantly evolving and adapting as we learn and grow throughout our life.
Absolutely. We're never finished composing our emotional symphonies. Every new experience, every new relationship, every new challenge adds a new note,
Right.
a new layer of complexity to the music of our lives.
Speaking of learning and growing,
Hmm.
we talked earlier about how the brain maps the body to create a sense of self. But how does this body map actually develop?
Right.
Is it something we're like born with,
Mhm.
or does it emerge over time through our interactions with the world?
That's a great question. And the answer is it's a bit of both. We're born with a basic blueprint of our bodies, a kind of a rough sketch, if you will.
Okay.
But this map becomes more refined and detailed through experience.
So like an artist,
Mhm.
starting with a basic outline and then gradually adding layers of color and detail to create a more complete and nuanced picture.
Exactly. Every time we move, touch something, or feel a sensation, our brain is updating its body map.
That makes me think about babies.
Yeah.
They're constantly exploring their bodies,
Right.
putting their toes in their mouths, grabbing their fingers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're conducting their own little experiments, trying to figure out what's part of them and what isn't.
That's a great observation. Those early sensory experiences are crucial for developing a strong and accurate body map. And this map isn't just about physical location, it also includes our sense of proprioception.
Proprioception. Refresh my memory. What is that again?
It's basically our awareness of where our body is in space,
Okay.
even when we're not looking.
Right.
Like if I close my eyes and reach for my coffee cup, I know where my hand is in relation to the cup, even though I can't see it. That's proprioception at work.
Right. It's like having an internal GPS system for our bodies.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's incredible to think about how much information our brains are processing just to keep us upright and coordinated, to allow us to move through the world with, grace and ease.
It really is. And this constant feedback between the brain and body, this constant updating and refining of our body map and our sense of proprioception
Right.
is what allows us to develop that sense of embodiment we talked about earlier.
Right. That feeling of being, comfortably at home in our own skin.
Yeah.
Embodiment. It's such a powerful concept. It really makes me appreciate how
Yeah.
much our sense of self is tied to our physical experiences,
Mm-hmm.
to those sensations and movements that make us feel like we're truly alive and present in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our bodies are not just vehicles for our minds, they're an integral part of who we are, and our experiences in the world shape the way we think, feel, and interact with others.
And this connection between mind and body is so important for our overall well-being. When we feel disconnected from our bodies,
Yeah.
it can impact our mood, our self-esteem, even our ability to connect with others in a meaningful way.
That's a really important point. Cultivating a strong sense of embodiment is essential for both our physical and mental health.
Right.
It's about learning to listen to our bodies, to appreciate their strengths and limitations,
Yeah.
and to move through the world with a sense of grace and ease.
Okay, so we've talked about the body map and proprioception,
Right.
those foundational elements of embodiment. But there's another layer to this whole sense of self thing that I'm really curious about. The concept of body schema.
Ah, yes, body schema. It's a bit more abstract than the body map,
Okay.
but equally important for understanding how we experience ourselves in the world.
So what exactly is body schema? How is it different from the body map?
Think of it as a dynamic, unconscious model of your body's possibilities for action. It's not just about knowing where your limbs are in space. It's about understanding how they can move and interact with the environment. It's like having an internal blueprint for movement and action.
So it's not just about knowing where my arm is. It's about knowing like how my arm can move, what it can do,
Yeah.
how it can interact with the world around me.
Exactly. Body schema is constantly being updated based on our experiences, our physical abilities, and even our emotional state.
Okay.
It's what allows us to move through the world with a sense of fluidity and purpose.
This makes me think about dancers and athletes. They have such a incredible sense of body awareness and control.
Yeah,
Is it because they've developed a particularly refined body schema?
that's a great observation. Years of practice and training have shaped their body schemas to allow for um, incredibly precise and fluid movements. They've internalized those patterns of movement, those possibilities of action, so they can move with a sense of effortlessness and flow.
So it's not just about like muscle memory. It's about this deeper unconscious understanding of how their bodies can move through space,
Mm-hmm.
how they can interact with the world around them. It's like they've embodied their craft on a whole other level.
Exactly. And this understanding, this body schema is constantly evolving. For example, if a dancer injures their ankle, their body schema will adapt to accommodate the injury,
Okay.
allowing them to continue moving in new and creative ways, exploring different possibilities of action within those new constraints.
That's incredible. So our body schema is constantly adapting to our circumstances,
Mm.
helping us navigate the world in the most efficient and effective way possible. It's like having a built-in coach, always adjusting our game plan based on the situation at hand.
It's truly remarkable, and this adaptability, this ability to learn and adapt our body schema based on our experiences, is crucial for our survival.
Right.
Imagine if we had to consciously think about every single movement we made. We'd be paralyzed by indecision.
I know I can barely walk and chew gum at the same time, so I can only imagine.
Right.
So body schema frees up our conscious minds to focus on other things like planning our next meal or pondering the mysteries of the universe.
Exactly. It's like having a highly skilled autopilot that takes care of all the nitty-gritty details of movement, leaving our conscious minds free to roam, to explore, to create.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. The brain maps,
Right.
proprioception,
Yeah.
the body schema,
Mm-hmm.
the constant communication between brain and body.
Uh-huh.
It's all working together to create this seamless experience of being a physical self, moving through the world with a sense of agency and purpose.
It's truly a remarkable symphony of neural and bodily processes, all orchestrated to create this sense of embodied selfhood that is so fundamental to the human experience.
But there's still like one more piece of the puzzle that I'm really curious about.
Mm-hmm.
The the sense of agency.
Yeah.
That feeling that we are the ones in control of our actions and decisions.
Right.
Where does that fit into all of this?
Yeah.
How do we go from simply knowing where our bodies are and how they can move
Mhm.
to actually feeling like we are the ones calling the shots?
That's a great question. And it's one that has kept philosophers and neuroscientists busy for centuries.
It really is fascinating to think about because it seems so basic to our experience of being human.
It is. It's one of those fundamental aspects of consciousness that we rarely think about until it's, disrupted in some way.
Right? Like when we're daydreaming or lost in thought, and we suddenly realize we've been walking for blocks without paying attention to where we're going.
Exactly. In those moments, we might feel a sense of disorientation or even a disconnect between our actions and our intentions.
So the sense of agency isn't just about knowing where our bodies are and how they can move.
Right.
It's about feeling like we're the ones making the decisions to move.
Yeah,
Like we're the authors of our own actions.
precisely. It's that feeling of, I did that sense of volition and control that makes us feel like we're not just robots or puppets, but active agents in the world.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does the brain create that feeling of agency? I mean, is there like a specific part of the brain that's responsible for this feeling of me being in control?
It's not quite that simple. The sense of agency arises from the interplay of multiple brain regions and bodily processes. One key factor is the brain's ability to predict the sensory consequences of our actions.
So if I decide to reach for my coffee cup,
Hmm.
my brain is already anticipating what it will feel like when my hand grasps the cup.
Yeah,
It's like my brain is running a simulation of the action before it even happens.
exactly. And when the actual sensory feedback matches the brain's prediction, it strengthens that feeling that I was the one who caused that action.
Okay. But what happens if the prediction doesn't match the feedback? Like if I reach for the cup and it's suddenly empty.
That mismatch can disrupt our sense of agency, leading to feelings of surprise, confusion, or even a sense of disembodiment.
It's like that moment when you go to shake someone's hand and they don't reciprocate. You suddenly feel like awkward and unsure of yourself.
Exactly. Those moments of mismatch highlight how much we rely on our brain's predictive abilities to create that sense of, seamless flow between our intentions and our actions.
So our sense of agency is constantly being calibrated
Yeah.
based on the feedback we receive from the world.
Yeah, it's like our brains are constantly checking in, making sure our actions are aligning with our intentions and adjusting our sense of self accordingly.
That's a great way to put it. And this constant calibration is what allows us to maintain a stable and coherent sense of self, even in a constantly changing environment.
Yeah.
It's what allows us to feel like we're the same me from moment to moment, even as our experiences and our understanding of the world are constantly evolving. This is all so mind-blowing. I'm
Yeah.
starting to realize how much we take our sense of agency for granted.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we rarely think about consciously, but it's absolutely essential for our experience of being human, for our ability to interact with the world in a meaningful way, and for our sense of who we are as individuals.
Absolutely. It's one of those fundamental aspects of consciousness that we often overlook until it's disrupted in some way.
And it's so intertwined with our sense of embodiment and our body schema. It's like all these pieces, the brain maps,
Right.
proprioception,
Yeah.
the body schema, the sense of agency, are all working together to create this, seamless, integrated experience of being a self in the world.
It truly is a remarkable symphony of neural and bodily processes, all orchestrated to create this sense of embodied selfhood that makes us who we are.
Well, I think we've covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive. From those detailed maps in our cortex to the surprising role of the brainstem
Right.
and the amazing power of our minds to simulate and predict the future, it's been an incredible journey.
It has indeed, and it just goes to show how much we still have to discover about this incredible organ, the human brain.
So true. And for our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your own curiosity about the incredible world inside your head. It's a world worth exploring, a world of endless possibilities and amazing discoveries.
Absolutely.
So keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions, and never stop marveling at the wonder and mystery of your own mind.
That's great advice. The journey of self-discovery is a lifelong adventure, and the brain is the ultimate frontier.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of brain maps and the dawn of mind. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.